Janet, this feels like years in the making for you to be here today, but you are a very busy person, and I appreciate you being here so much. So thank you for being here for the podcast.
Well, I'm super excited. Thank you for having me. And I know we kind of cross paths like strangers in the night at events and concerts, and nice to be here with you. So thank
I
you.
know we're just kind of excited just about actually having a few minutes to actually talk versus us just kind of running into each other at different things. And I usually run into you while you're working. So why don't we start there? Janet, what is it that you do? And tell us all about it.
Uh, I am currently with ProMusica Chamber Orchestra here in Columbus, Ohio. My title is CEO, but I feel that my role really honestly isn't that. I feel that my role here is really to be a conduit, a convener, to be sort of that connection between those who love and appreciate art and music with those who are making art and music. And in our case, it's our wonderful musicians of the orchestra. So I feel very grateful to be leading this organization in this capacity. Um, I've been with the orchestra in total since 2003. Feel like I've grown up in this community and grown up in this organization. So feel very, very blessed. Every day is different in this job. It's a labor of love.
And you have received numerous recognitions for your work, and I just want to give that a moment to say that. But I would also like you to kind of dig in a little deeper. Like, let's just say someone just shows up on a random day. What are some of the things that they could see if they're coming to see the orchestra?
I think what you one would find is a lot of intensity, a lot of intentionality. So just to give a little context about ProMusica, so we're a chamber orchestra, and we are in our 46th season. So really keeping that eye out for our 50th anniversary coming up. A lot of people ask, what is a chamber orchestra and how is that different from a
Exactly.
symphony orchestra? And that's a totally valid question. And I would just say, like, by definition, a chamber orchestra just means smaller, more intimate in size. So if you come to ProMusica, you would see maybe anywhere from 35 to 40-ish musicians on stage versus going to a bigger symphony orchestra where sometimes they're upward of 70 or 80 musicians on stage. So just from a sort of structural standpoint, that's one of the differences. We play different types of repertoire than a big orchestra, just again because of our size. But I would say more on sort of the cerebral level. A chamber orchestra, I think, is a lot more flexible because of the smaller size. We can play music that was written for smaller groups, but we can also enhance to get a little bit bigger. So that's kind of sort of the main sort of difference. But for us, like, our core is 37 musicians. We have a wonderful group of musicians. Two-thirds of them actually don't live in Columbus. So
Oh, that I did not know.
yeah. So we have about a third that live here, a third that fly in from Phoenix,
Oh my
California,
goodness.
North Carolina, New York, and then another third who drive in regionally. So St. Louis, Chicago, Cleveland, Cincinnati. So I really feel like, ProMusica is this camaraderie, this collective of musicians who really kind of choose Columbus to be a really important part of their musical life and
Awesome.
another musical home.
Yeah, and I will definitely do a testimonial because I try and get there when I can. I usually get wooed by when you have big acts for sure, like just about everybody else. But I always say I got to come more often because the orchestra itself is so amazing. Yeah, the lead singer or whomever that's there too, the title attraction, but the musicians themselves are amazing. And I would just find myself just even closing my eyes and just listening. And I mean, your mind just starts. I make it akin to like when I watch Fantasia with the
Uh-huh.
lights and the things just kind of waving around. That's kind of what I was seeing in my mind's eye when I would listen to that. And like I said, it is just beautiful beautiful work. So I don't want people necessarily to, think like, orchestras are not for me or chamber music's not for me. It's for everybody, and you'll be super surprised how much you will love it because it is just so clear and crisp and perfect. And it's definitely a treat for anybody.
Oh, well, thank you for saying that because I do think that anyone who's working kind of in the performing arts industry, but particularly in sort of the classical music or orchestral space, one of the stigmas is like you have to know what is happening on stage to go and enjoy it, which is
No.
completely not true. You should come if you love music, if you want to be moved, if you want to experience something with the collective of people around you. And that's really what it's all about. When you come to ProMusica, we welcome you with open arms. Um, and again, kind of going back to our musicians being in the Southern Theater, which is our home, being intimate, it's almost this like real palpable connection that the audience can feel with what's
Yes.
happening on stage and vice versa. So it's kind of like watching like your favorite sports team, right? The team has, all the team players have their role and they live and breathe together as sort of one organism, but they feed off the energy that's coming from the stands and the crowds. And that's really kind of what it's all about, is that shared experience that's so
Oh,
important.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you guys serve drinks too. So if that draws people in, get yourself a little drink. It could be like a whole date night thing. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's definitely something to experience. And if people have the opportunity, I think they should absolutely jump at it
Yeah.
because
I will
it's, like I
tell you
said, it's this wonderful
this,
little treasure that's like sitting in the middle of the city. And
yeah,
I don't know if everybody's had that opportunity to experience. And like you said, you don't have to know the music per se
right?
to just go and
No.
enjoy it. It's
Yeah.
crazy
Yeah.
good.
I often use my husband as sort of like the example. So, when we first started dating, he'd never really been to like an orchestra concert or anything classical. He's
Oh
a big
wow.
Deadhead, Tom Petty,
Yeah.
David Gilmour, Pink Floyd, that's
Yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah. We
really
might be
his.
married to the same guy. So,
Yeah. So when, he started coming to ProMusica, he, didn't know really what to expect, but just over time now he loves to come. He gets his gin and tonic at the top of the show. He sits and he just feels like he's in a living room with, wonderful people and great music, and some things he likes, some things he doesn't like, and that's okay,
that is
like
okay.
that's
Yeah. Yeah.
okay. Yeah. Yeah.
I just find that I breathe better. Sometimes when I'm there, I
Yeah.
just can relax,
Yeah.
listen. There's no other screens going on. It's just a nice peaceful time.
Yes, yeah, yeah. So if my husband, the deadhead, can, come and enjoy, then I
Mine
think,
too. Yes. I didn't know this about him. So when next time we're together, we'll just put those two in a corner and they can
yes,
talk about all that sort of stuff. Led
sure,
Zeppelin and all that.
exactly. Yeah.
Okay, great. Now you were not born a CEO, so I would really love to know what you did as a kid that was really fun and exciting.
Oh, that's a good question. So, uh, I mean, I guess I'll say this, sort of all of my life, I have been around music. So, my mom is a pianist. So, she often tells stories of when she was pregnant with me and she gave concerts, went to concerts, and I would be kicking and, kind of fussing
Oh,
about. So I really feel like, music is in my blood, it's in my DNA, and I cannot imagine really my life without it, whether it's behind the scenes or in the middle of it. So before coming to ProMusica, I call it my former life. I was a
mm-hmm.
flute player. I played professionally in several orchestras, including the Taipei Symphony Orchestra, where I grew up in Taipei, Taiwan. So I have roots there. So, really spent a good part of my former life, on the
Yeah.
stage performing
How
and
many
now
years did you do that as a professional?
well, professionally in Taiwan, I did it for 3-ish years. And then before that, my degrees are in flute performance. So I was fully immersed
Oh,
in
absolutely. Yeah.
that path of becoming a professional musician on stage. And, life life is never a straight line. So life often takes you along a journey that sometimes you least expect opportunities. And
Yes.
I just found myself, I had wonderful supporters who believed in me that, helping to support art and the craft and the industry in the capacity that I'm in now made it very exciting for me, and I'm so grateful. So all that to say to your question about what did I do when I was young
No, it's you're
fun.
doing great. It's coming together.
I mean, I this sounds so like nerdy. I don't know. So because I grew up in Taipei, Taiwan, I did not grow up in America. So I grew up in a very much more sort of very like traditional kind of family environment. So I did a lot of music. That was kind of what I loved to do. I certainly like interestingly did sports. So I
Hmm.
played volleyball and basketball, and I really loved that to my mom's chagrin that I would like hurt my fingers. So,
Oh.
but yeah, so I guess I would say like just reflecting now when I think about growing up and my life, I feel very blessed that I grew up in a in my culture, right?
Hmm.
In my
Hmm.
Taiwanese culture, and um, really now feel like I can often bridge sort of my Taiwanese side plus my now American side, and just it's really interesting now reflecting on like who how I am now, and how those experiences informed who I am today.
Absolutely. So was sports kind of the friend time for you? Like obviously music is a little more of a lone sport, if you will. So when you were, doing other team sports, was that like the time that you spent with friends and things like that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think, yeah, there's always like if you play music, you have growing up there, you have your bond with your music friends, right? Often you think about like band camp and
Oh,
those
nice.
relationships
Yeah,
you
yeah.
form, as musicians and jamming together on your instruments. But then on the other side, the sports side is also was a different subset of friends for me, and a different outlet for me. So, kind of weaving between the two, I think I had a lot of fun just having different experiences with different people, and
That's cool.
but ultimately like learning how to be on a team and also practicing on your own
Mm,
and evolving your own craft so that you eventually become a team member, right? So a lot of musicians have to spend many, many hours alone in their practice room
right.
learning their parts, but then when you come together with the orchestra, other musicians, you are part of a team. So
Exactly.
I truly think those kinds of experience have also helped me kind of just navigate my role today.
So you're a musician. So how did you get to CEO? What happened there?
That's
And I love how you changed your title. You said, I don't really see
well,
myself as a CEO. I see me as, and honestly, now that you've said what you've said, that makes so much sense. So I mean, it's an actual decision to decide to say, you know what, I'm going from this to this. So what was
yeah.
the catalyst for that to happen?
So I think so I made whether it was intentional or not, right? So I shared that I was playing professionally. So my journey has been music, 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 training to become a professional musician, played with the orchestras. And I came to a point in my life where I was playing with the symphony in Taiwan, and I decided that I wanted to come back to the United States. And that was something that my parents really had always hoped and dreamed for me after they moved our family to Taiwan and where I grew
Hmm.
up. So wanted to come back to the US. And so I did. I quit the symphony job there, rooted myself in Cleveland, Ohio.
Hmm.
Took lessons, auditioned, taught, worked at the Japanese restaurant, like did all the things, played
All the things,
weddings,
yeah.
played funerals and all the gigs, and tried to, kind of figure out what I wanted to do, because I mean truly the orchestral world is incredibly competitive. It
Hmm.
is
There's
you can
only
get
so many seats. I
only
mean,
so many seats. Yeah, very, very competitive process, especially for flute, because an orchestra really only usually has three or four flutes versus like 20 violins. So
oh yeah.
the options are even slimmer. But I will say, like, I had always been very intrigued by what it meant to be an arts administrator.
Hmm.
So I went to Oberlin for my undergrad. I had always remembered like going to concerts and I would open the program book and I would see these lists of names. This concert is sponsored by X Bank or Mercedes Benz. Like I
Hmm.
always just like very intrigued by what that all meant. So I kind of just basically thought, well, if if maybe being on stage as a performer is not really my long-term calling, like what about working behind the scenes in an industry that I really love and I care about?
Yes.
So I basically, while I was auditioning and all that, I started applying for any kind of internship, fellowship, entry level job in an orchestra or like organization. Didn't know what development meant, didn't know what marketing really meant. I don't have a business degree, but I knew the art form. And so what ended up happening, long story short, is ProMusica was hiring for an operations and education manager, working closely with developing programs and working with musicians. And that's an area that I'm very familiar with,
Yep.
right? So
Perfect.
applied, got the job, moved to Columbus. So I did that for, it was about 3 years, I think. Um, was actually going to leave ProMusica for another job, had taken that job, and then the executive director at the time that was the role became open. And again, I just had some supporters here in Columbus who I think said you should go for it, you should try. And I don't know what, like, why I felt that, but I said, okay, I'll try. And I don't know if I got suckered into it. Maybe that was uh, but ended up here, and I really kind of felt for myself, if there were any opportunity for me to take a chance and risk and try, it would be here because it was with people that I knew. It was an organization I was familiar with. So I
Absolutely.
really kind of took a leap of faith. Had to tell the other job, thanks, but no thanks. I'm really sorry. And so that's why I say, like, I feel like every day has been a different role for me because the
Hmm.
organization has evolved, and um, it's been really wonderful. And also why I say I feel like I grew up here, because you have a lot of learning and growing up to do.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Well,
So
because you were around a community that really already embraced you too, you're like, okay, if I make some mistakes, I don't have to really freak out about this.
yeah, I had people who, knew that you would help me understand what budgeting meant, who,
Hmm.
I could speak about, the art form that was natural to me. But I also knew our musicians really well and kind of understand sort of artists' needs. And I think
Hmm.
for me, that was really kind of half the battle in terms of seeing the vision for the orchestra. So yeah, so I remember telling myself very early, Janet, oh, I will never become an executive director. I will
Of
never,
course,
never.
of course.
And never say never, but I don't take any of those experiences for granted. It took a lot of trust and building and kind of hard work, and I'm just really grateful.
Well, I think you're the perfect choice. And anybody who's in a position where you really understand the craft of it, and then I mean, because that's really the gold of it. And you can learn the other things. That's kind of exactly what you did. You understood the musicians and the relationships and how
Yeah,
the performances were all supposed to look, facing the audience. And that behind the scenes stuff, that can be learned.
yeah,
And you've
yeah.
done an amazing job with that because,
Thank
again,
you.
it's just a fantastic organization.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, no, I again, it's been fun to see it grow, but also just see like the Columbus community, grow with us too.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
what we see now here in Columbus and the space that arts lives in is so different from even just like 5 or 6 years ago. So
Oh, yes, yes.
very
It's changed dramatically, and I think any robust city, any growing city needs to have a great art scene, and that includes music of all types. So the fact
yes.
that you're doing this contribution to our education and our lifestyle is a great thing. So I do thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
All right, so your world is music, but sometimes you are off the clock. I'm really curious as to what you do to unplug.
Well, my husband will say nothing, and he's
There's got to
wrong.
be something.
Yeah, no. I love to read. I don't get enough time to do that, but I
Yeah.
do love I love to read, and I love to just be with my dogs and
Your dogs are
either
hilarious, by the way.
my yeah, they're
I
they're
follow
pretty
them.
crazy but fun. Yeah. I really just loved sort of Janet alone time, whether that's
Nice.
reading or walking, people watching. I think because my role and being in the arts, a lot of the time is you're outward facing, right? You're engaging. It's a very emotional kind of day to day, if
Hmm.
a musician's upset or something didn't go well or somebody's so excited, it's very emotional. And so when there's like downtime, it's usually when um I just need quiet. Um
I
so
love that you bring that up because I think some people don't really respect that about themselves and that they need to have that alone time, that me time. Because, I think it's almost turned into like some sort of, crazy cop out, if you will, when you say, I need some me time sort of thing. And you're being so selfish and self-indulgent or whatever, but it's really for your own health. And the
yeah,
fact that, people don't view it that way, it's like, no, I need to do this in order to do that. And
yes,
you have, if in order, because you're on all the time, like you said, it's very emotional. You're like basically on a stage, if you will, most of your day. And just
right.
to say, I got to stop that and just dedicate some of this quiet time to just so I can recalibrate and be better
Yeah.
at it.
Yeah.
So I'm so glad you brought that up because, like I said, some people don't give that the respect it deserves, and it
Yeah.
is it is really important for all of us to at least know ourselves. I mean, my
Right.
husband's an extrovert, so for him to recalibrate and get more energy, he's got to go out.
Oh,
And for me, I'm more like you.
yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
like, no, I want to go home.
I know.
So we try and work that out the best we can, but
I know.
but the key is just to kind of know yourself. And I love that you brought that up because I think a lot of people are probably more like you and me for that matter, where it's like, show's over.
Yeah.
I gotta go do something, even if it's completely frivolous and useless and it's just
Right.
me staring at the TV for a while. I just need to just stop the
Yeah.
cycle. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think about this a lot even more now. So earlier this past May, we had John Batiste here for 2-day musical residency, which was just like life changing, I think,
Yeah.
for me personally, but also just exciting for the community and the organization. But one of the nights I had the honor to just ask him a couple of questions from the stage. And one of the questions I asked him was kind of along the lines of like, you're performing every night. And if you see John Batiste perform, like he is all in, right? He is like he connects with every single person that's in the audience. And so
Mm-hmm.
I asked him like, so, when you're not doing that, like how do you rebalance? And he said something very sort of similar, which I think we all resonate with, which is just sort of the quietude, right? Because especially as creatives, you can't create when you're exhausted.
Right. Right.
Yeah. And so, but I do think that even if you're not working in the creative industry, I think it is really important to recognize like what you need to recharge and
Mm-hmm.
be your best self. So I think even more now these days, I think it's even more important to recognize that.
I love that we put a fine point on that because again, I believe 100% in that. And I love that you're trying at least to exercise it a little bit, even though your husband may debate that. But
Yeah.
what's even most important is that you know that about yourself.
Yes, yes, I know.
It's like
Like
if I
even
just
then,
could get,
I'm like in my head, I'm like, oh, I need to calm down. So,
I know. Well, and I think too, and women especially are notorious for them. It's just like, oh, you're trying to get ahead sometimes.
yeah,
And sometimes it's a losing game, and you know
yeah,
what? It's still there. It's still
yeah,
there waiting for you
right.
if you don't
Yeah,
get to it.
yes, yes, totally. You have to be all the things and do all the
Yep.
things,
Be
and
all
at the
in,
end
be
of
in
the
every
day,
place,
yeah,
and yeah,
it'll all still be there tomorrow.
it sure
So
will.
yeah, I know it's hard.
Well, Janet, I have loved this conversation so much, and I think you have offered a lot of insight, not only to the orchestra, but in how you kind of make this all work as an artist, kind of on both sides of the fence with having to work your left side and your right side of your brain at all times to make it all work. But again, I think you're doing a fantastic job, and I would really encourage everybody to check out your organization and just pick a show, and you will not be disappointed.
Yeah. Pick a show, come as you are, bring a friend. I'll be
Right.
there. My team will be there. We'd love to see, we love to make new friends
It's a
and
lovely date night, or you could just bring, like you said, Bridge, just bring a close friend and just indulge. I mean, it's
right.
really almost like treating yourself to something really, really precious.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. But I thank you so much for when you come and for all that you're doing for this community.
Oh, thank you. And
Yeah.
thank you again. We'll just keep thanking each other until I hit
Okay.
the stop button.
Okay.
All
We'll
right.
thank
Thank
each
you.
other in the happy hour. So,
Exactly. Exactly. All right. We'll talk soon.
all right. Thank you.